Russia has started attacking troops in Europe, even if it's in a hybrid way. 2 men were detained in Germany, accused of trying to disable several German Navy ships at once. Reports say the Kremlin is targeting NATO military infrastructure through its agents. At the same time, the European Union reported that 2 Russian space satellites successfully intercepted communications over Europe, thus gaining access to classified data. Officials believe that the interceptions risk not only compromising confidential information, but could also allow Moscow to manipulate their trajectories or even cause them to crash. Meanwhile, the European Commission has already stated that Russia has been attacking European satellites for several years. And while Russia continues to attack Europe with such hybrid methods, Ukraine has received a huge military order from the United States. The Pentagon has planned to create a stockpile of hundreds of thousands of strike drones by 2027 and has invited 2 Ukrainian companies to participate in their production. Let's discuss in this nightly edition the news that often goes unnoticed. My name is Alexei Peci. Let's talk about this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, give a like, and leave any comment under this video. Also, subscribe to my television channel. The link is in this video's description. There you will also find links to platforms and payment details, which you can use to support the work of this YouTube channel with your donation or paid subscription. I would be grateful for any support you can give. So, let's start with the news that exploded in the German media space today. 2 citizens of European Union countries who worked at the port of Hamburg tried to disable several military corvettes. These are the German Navy's smallest ships. They poured about 20 kilograms of sand into the engine of one of them, punctured the water pipes, removed the fuel tank caps, and disconnected the fuses on these corvettes. The Hamburg prosecutor's office reported all of this. A 37-year-old Romanian citizen and a 54-year-old Greek citizen were arrested. Authorities also conducted searches in 3 houses in these 2 countries and in Hamburg itself. And now, Bundestag Deputy Roderich Kiesewetter from the ruling Christian Democratic Union Party made the following statement, quote, "The method of operation and the apparent goal correspond to the Russian pattern of organizing targeted sabotage at military and critically important infrastructure sites, for preparing attacks and spreading fear in Germany using hybrid methods." And, as Politico writes today, Russian intelligence. Subtitle editor A. Semkin, proofreader A. Yegorova. The country has begun actively recruiting people in European countries to spy on military and transportation facilities of opponents of the Putin regime to carry out attacks, arson, and other acts of sabotage. Spies are using messengers to look for people who need money and have a criminal background. Often, the people who accept their offers are not citizens of the countries where the sabotage is organized. This includes migrants, among whom there have been Ukrainian refugees, Moldovans, and Belarusians. Moreover, after the sabotage is carried out, Russia tries to make it look like it has nothing to do with it at all. For example, it specifically recruits Ukrainians or Belarusians and then says, "Look, these were Ukrainians, so it was Ukraine that was involved in this sabotage." But the investigation was done by subtitle editor Alexandrova, editor Semkin, and proofreader A. Yegorova in Ukraine. In 2022, there were at least 145 acts of sabotage in Europe that fit the pattern of hybrid warfare waged by Russia against the West. Although the damage, even in cases where the sabotage was successful, turned out to be relatively minor. These attacks, ranging from vandalism of monuments to cyber attacks and arson of warehouses, divert significant resources from security services. That's basically the idea behind the Russian Federation. Subtitle editor Alexandrova, editor Semkin Yegorova. As you know, Europe has started actively fighting against the Russian shadow fleet in the past couple of weeks. The French have even seized a Russian oil tanker. and accordingly the Russians understand perfectly well that it is primarily German and French military ships that will take part in these operations, so it is possible that by this method they tried to deprive Germany of the ships that could further participate in operations against the Russian shadow fleet. Subtitle editor A. Semkin, proofreader A. Yegorova. Spacecraft have been monitoring European satellites for the past 3 years, specifically the Luch 1 and Luch 2 satellites, which have repeatedly performed suspicious maneuvers in orbit. Both spacecraft carried out risky close approaches. Subtitle editor, proofreader. European countries that operate high above the Earth and serve the continent, as well as a significant part of Africa and the Middle East. According to orbital data and ground-based telescopic observations, these Russian satellites lingered near the European ones for weeks, especially during the last 3 years since their launch. In 2023, Luch 2 approached 17 European satellites and hovered near them. Major General Mikhail Traut, the head of the German Military Space Command, stated, quote, "Both satellites are suspected of conducting signal intelligence." He went on to express concern that confidential information, subtitle editor Alexandrova. And according to sources from the Financial Times, Luch 1 and Luch 2 are unlikely to have the capability to jam or destroy satellites. Subtitle editor Alexandrova reported that Russia is developing powerful laser weapons that could be permanent. Subtitle editor A. Semkin, proofreader A. Yegorova. Tom Renier noted that such activity by Moscow is not surprising. Here is the quote. "This is a long-standing practice on the part of Russia. There is nothing new here. Targeting European space assets or satellites is something Russia has been doing for many years, if not decades. We are well aware of this issue." Subtitle editor A. Semkin, proofreader A. Yegorova. And new mechanisms are being developed to deter aggression in space. The first is the Galileo system, an already existing satellite network capable of detecting and deterring such attacks. The second is the so-called European space shields. Subtitle editor A. Semkin, proofreader A. Yegorova. Well, while Russians are spying on Europe and trying to carry out sabotage there, Ukraine is moving towards strong military cooperation with the United States of America. The Pentagon published an official statement on its website indicating that the United States Department of Defense plans to create a stockpile of hundreds of thousands of strike drones by 2027 and subtitle editor Semkin, proofreader A. Yegorova, strike drones on a national scale as part of strengthening America's arsenal of freedom. And here is the first stage of implementing this program. Subtitle editor Semkin, proofreader A. And to evaluate supplier systems. It will be completed in early March when orders for prototypes worth about $150 million will be placed. Deliveries are expected to start soon after and continue for 5 months. Subtitle editor Semkin, proofreader A. Yegorova in the field of unmanned aerial vehicles. According to him, over the past few years, the use of drones on the battlefield, quote, has really come to the forefront, and Ukraine produces very, very good drones. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky previously, as you know, already announced, subtitle editor Semkin, proofreader A. Yegorova. This idea has been discussed for a long time and is finally being implemented. Zelensky stated that under the new drone deal program, the United States will buy drones directly from Kyiv in 2026. Subtitle editor A. Yegorova. At the same time, Zelensky emphasized that Kyiv will first provide weapons for itself, but any surplus will be exported. At the same time, Zelensky spoke about the need to control supplies to other countries so that Ukrainian weapons do not end up in the hands of the Russians. Well, friends, please write in the comments what you think. This is the kind of format for episodes where several important real news stories are collected, which I usually don't cover. Subtitle editor A. Yegorova, and don't forget to leave a like. If you found this episode interesting and useful, you can support it with your donation using the links and details in the description of this video. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye.